So I'm really, really excited to be introducing our panel, or rather, should I say, our moderator of the panel. Benjamin is going to be joining us now. He is a blogger and he is the Nigerian country manager for Stitch. You've probably seen him on Twitter doing spaces all the time, hosting amazing sessions, talking with amazing speakers. So really excited to let him take over to host our final panel of this topic, developing a balanced Nigeria talent pool. Over to Benjamin and the panel.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for that introduction. I think you saved me some time in introducing myself. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Great. Okay. Once again, it's been an amazing session so far. I'm super excited to be hosting this session on developing a balanced Nigerian talent pool. The way this will go is I'll do an introduction for myself, and then I'll pass it on to the panelists to also introduce themselves. Afterwards, we'll get right into the questions, and then we'll have like an outro. In between, we'd like to encourage every listener to engage with the session on the chat, ask questions, make comments, things that resonate with you, agree with it, and feel free to engage on Twitter with the hashtag UKNGTechHub. Thank you. So a little bit about myself. My name is Benjamin Dada, a self-acclaimed startup generalist and media entrepreneur. Currently, I'm the Nigeria country manager of an API fintech called Stitch, and also the publisher of a tech blog in my name. Since I started working at startups in 2015, I've worked with a couple of startups across different spectrums. I've also worked with SMEs, and I've seen how they sort of combine, hire, and source for talent. So I'm super excited to go a bit deeper into this topic to hear what it's like to build a Nigerian talent pool, even though I know many Nigerian talents don't even want to be associated with Nigeria per se. And over to our panelists. I can start with Tola. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, I didn't think I was going to come first. My name is Tola Onayemi. I'm an international trade and investment lawyer. So basically, I spent a bunch of my career negotiating for countries. One of the lead negotiators for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Now building out a company called Norebase that helps you set up your company in any African country, and the US helps you register your trademark. Basically, building the expansion infrastructure for ensuring that any business can actually experience Africa as a single market. Yeah.
All right, so the next person to speak, Oyin, feel free to call someone else after you're done introducing yourself.
Thank you, Benjamin. So yes, I'm Oyin. I am one of the co-founders and the COO of MoveMeBack. I'm based in London. MoveMeBack is a global members community and tech platform that connects the world to African opportunities. We have a curated community of about 50,000 individuals based in over 160 countries, of which Nigeria is one of our biggest demographics. And we connect that community to high impact African opportunities. Over the course of the last 4 or 5 years of operation, we've worked with over 800 organizations to help them tap into the best in global African talent and really scale their organizations by using talent as a great vehicle to do so. I will hand over to Ojoma.
Thanks, Oyin. Hi, everyone. My name is Ojoma Ochai. I'm the managing partner for the creative economy practice at CC Hub, where we support the application of technology and innovation across the African creative economy, so sectors like film, music, fashion, and so on. I also sit on a couple of boards, including the board of BTrust, which was set up through a Bitcoin donation by Jack Dorsey, the Twitter founder, and Jay-Z to support Bitcoin development in Africa and India, as well as on the board of the Africa Tech and Creative Group, which is a group of technology and creative industry professionals that came together in 2019 to form a community of businesses on the continent that are interested in ensuring that the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement actually benefits African businesses. I'm going to hand over to the final speaker, last but not least, Ibifuro. I hope I haven't murdered your name. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. You did a good job. So morning everyone, I'm Ibifuro Apiafi. I am a manager, entrepreneur selection and growth at Endeavor Nigeria. Endeavor is the leading global community of high impact entrepreneurs. It is of, by, and for entrepreneurs. And we define high impact entrepreneurs as entrepreneurs that, scale fast, dream big, and pay it forward.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. And thanks for following order, making my job easier. So I'll start with a quiz, right? And I want everybody to take a stand and explain their stand, right? What do you think? First of all, do you think we have a wealth or dearth of talent in the Nigerian tech ecosystem? So if you choose wealth, I want you to say a bit more of what you think we have a wealth of. And if you choose dearth, I want you to say a bit more of what you think we have a dearth of. Of course, you all know no right or wrong answer, and it would be nice to have like a balance. So, who wants to go first? I can pick someone.
I'm happy to go first, and probably
And then
set
you
the
pick the
tone.
next person.
I'll
Yes.
probably set the tone by not answering the question in the way that you asked it. So I don't think there's a binary answer. I think that for any ecosystem to work, there's a range of skills that must be present in the ecosystem, right? And so I feel like if you look at the Nigeria tech ecosystem, there are some talent and skills that are plentiful, shall we say, and then there are others that are not. And I come at this from the sort of intersection of creativity and technology, which is where my practice focuses and which is where my work focuses, and which is relative to the other elements of the tech ecosystem quite new, right? Create tech and the application of emerging technologies like AI or blockchain or whatever to the creative industries is relatively new in this context. So that's where I'm coming from, just to set the tone. But when I look at that ecosystem, I'm seeing a wealth of creative talent, right? That raw creativity and energy and just the ability to make something out of nothing. We're seeing a lot of that. And in my time, I remember maybe 10, 12 years ago, we did run a program in Nigeria when I was with the British Council. And the tagline for the program was "Talent is not enough." Because, and that remains true, right? Because while we're seeing lots of creative talent, the sort of skill and capacity that can convert that into a thriving ecosystem is a whole other ball game, which is why I'm saying you can't really answer the question in a binary way, because that talent, that creativity is plentiful. The entrepreneurial energy and drive is plentiful. However, we're seeing a lack of management skills, whether it's artist management or project management. We're seeing a lack of entrepreneurial skills, even though there's the entrepreneurial energy and drive, the actual skills to build a business. We're also seeing that that's a bit lacking. We're seeing a lack of technical skills, right? From coding skills to technical tailoring skills if you're working in fashion, to technical editing skills if you're working in film. We're also seeing a lack of that. And what we're seeing additionally is that many of the people that are working in these sectors, whether it's the sort of pure creative industry or at the intersection of tech and creative, are often self-taught, right? And there's nothing wrong with being self-taught. But the problem is, as an employer, if I'm employing somebody that has been self-taught, it's really hard to determine what they know before they start working for me. And so there's a cost. You can interview, you can do all the tests in the world, but because there isn't a standard that says if you're a level 1 pattern cutter or if you're a level 1 or level 2 this, there's no way of knowing what you know or the fundamentals that your experience builds on. It attaches a cost to running a business, which it just makes the ecosystem really inefficient. So sorry, I'm not answering your question in the way you asked it. I think some things are plentiful and some things rather lacking. I'm going to hand over to Oyin to take on that question, if that's
okay. But I hope nobody else goes that route so that I can do like an analysis to say 2-2 or 1-3. But yes, Oyin, go ahead. I'll summarize after. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, Ojoma cheated. I'm going to be specific by answering the question you asked, which was about talent and not skills. So you asked, is there a wealth or a dearth of talent? And I would say there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of young talent, as Ojoma said. There's a lot of young talent that have the drive, the determination. We see a lot of people with a level of grit, hunger that you probably won't see out anywhere else in the world. When it comes to skills, though, I think there is a shortage. in terms of tech talent specifically, you know, there is more and more junior developer tech talent coming out every year. There is more talent coming out in the tech talent space, specifically around Android development and web app development. But when it comes to mid and senior level talent, in iOS, in AI, as Ojoma mentioned, this is where we start to see more of a shortage. I think we typically see a shortage in skills which can be divided into 3 areas: into hard skills, into soft skills, and then into skills which are more aligned to your exposure. In hard skills, as I said, deep tech, deep advanced engineering, iOS, cloud development, skills around being able to actually operate. You know, there was, you yourself, Benjamin, spoke of yourself as a generalist. We see a lot of generalist great talent, but then when it comes to the talent that are needed for scaling organizations where deeper skill sets are required, that's where, again, we start to see the shortage. On the softer side, we see, to be quite frank, a shortage around things like problem solving, critical thinking, the skills that enable someone to take a problem they may not have seen before and figure out how to solve it. I think we see skills around an ability to really deeply understand consumers and insights and translate that into product, translate that into business operations, which enable organizations across Nigeria and the rest of the continent to scale.
Okay.
And then I think we also see, sorry, just to finish off, we also see a shortage around exposure that enables enables individuals to say, okay, I've seen how something scales, I can now put that knowledge, put that insight and exposure into my business operations in a Nigerian context. So yeah, hopefully I haven't cheated because I've answered the specific question, but with a few caveats. And I'll move on to Adetola.
Yeah, thanks. I think that we have both. This is hard, and I was trying to pick a side while all of this was going around. But I think what we're seeing is that we're seeing an abundance of capacity, but a dearth of talent, right? And this is the best way to say it, right? So I think that when you start looking at the fact that we have 150 to 200 million people, right? That's already a massive population size, right? Labor is probably one of our biggest advantages as a continent and as a country, right? So that's already a massive thing. But what you're seeing on the other hand, though, is that there is also at the same time a dearth of very specialized skills, right? Every startup founder I know and every founder complains about the same thing. Hiring is just incredibly hard, right? Like there's so much job opportunities for specialized skills, but finding people that fit neatly into that is just incredibly difficult. And so what I think will happen so far is that we've created what I'll call churn machines that can churn out specific skills, right? So we have a lot of coders, a lot of programmers. We have and so what happens a number of times that we say this is the new hot trend, and everyone just runs into it, and we have like this pumping machine that like creates a lot of them and just go through it. But like it's not like widespread talent, right? Like so we don't have a lot of like high specialized operators, for instance, right? Who can say, listen, after you build a company to say a Series A company, can take it on to be from a Series A to a Series C, right? We don't have a lot of like CEO type talents, like who can come and just be poached to be CEOs, right? We've had situations where we've had like companies need bailouts and only one person, right? Like everyone looks in the ecosystem when the company needs bailout to look to, right? We all just look to Adia and say, Adia, where you come save the company. And the thing is, we're beginning to see those, or even in the NGO space, everyone almost looks to Ojoma for like a bunch of things, right? Every time, right? And what you're seeing over and over again is that there is, or even in legal, right? Like in raises, everyone looks like me to help. Like, so what you're seeing is that there's not a lot of spread of like, there's too much key man risk, like too much key man risk in the ecosystem, right? Where we all look to like few people for like very specialized skills because not a lot of people can fill that space, right? And so what happens is there's a lot of potential, but because most of these things take you not earning enough in the beginning years to build the competence, what's happening is that not a lot of people are going through that pumping machine, right? Like people are going through the same like systems. And so there's a massive potential for skills, but like there's very few people that have like the talent you need to like almost like drive things from like nothing to like a ridiculous point of like of productivity.
Okay. Ibifuro.
All right, so I'll keep it brief because you guys have already made like really good points. But I'll just pick up from where Adetola stopped. So in terms of talent, I think that there's a lot of talent as well. But then to his point around the skill sets, I think that while we have a lot of concentration risk right now in the market, the people that are, would I say, the key men that are give us the key man risk are also building people that will be the next generation of operators and next generation of skills that people would hire in the ecosystem. I'll steal from what Falarian has said at the start of the event, where he said it's still day one. So we need to remember that our ecosystem is still pretty young. And so it's expected that we'll be at this level where, the talent that we have available and like people with deep knowledge that will be in the ecosystem, we just don't have it yet. But I think that there are things being done to basically build this talent and build this skill pipeline that will eventually be able to grow the next generation of, Series A to E IPO companies in the ecosystem. Yeah.
Oh wow, that was interesting. So nobody answered my question as a binary answer, but there are a few things I picked out, and I think it would be useful for the audience. One is I realized that there's actually a distinction between talent and skill, and that's something the panel has helped to show, right? So while we have capacity, talent, we don't yet have specialized skills and things that people can use for growth stage businesses, right? And then the second thing is the ecosystem is actually still young. So arguably the startup world or craze in Nigeria is barely like 10 years or 11 years, if you think about it that way. So we're still pretty young and is expected. So thanks to Ibifuro for that nugget. And then the final thing is that because some of the people who joined startup were from like legacy industries and only a few of them joined, we're having like key man risk, right? So we're having only very limited number of people who can take on roles at startups to change trajectories or do turnarounds. That's nice. And this sort of leads me to my next point. So when I was growing up, I thought, maybe because of where I started. So like my first startup experience was at Andela, and everybody seemed to have like a career path. So you're either a QA person or a developer or this. So I thought that in the future, everybody is going to be a specialist, and I can be the one guy that'll be a generalist, and then they'll pay me the salary of two people because I'm like 1 out of 10. Do you know what I mean? But now I'm hearing talks around. It looks like we're now having even early stage generalists and not enough specialists to do growth stage things. So my question is, one, what are the importance of generalist roles in our ecosystem today, right? If you could advise a talent, would you say they should consider going into a specialist role with which they can grow into over the next 5-7 years, or they should start as a generalist? So the question again, what are the importance of generalist roles today in our ecosystem as it is now? And if you could advise a young talent, would you say they should go into a specialist role now, or they should, just start being a generalist? And I'll start from Ibifuro, and then you pick the next person.
All right. So I'd say generalists play a very important role because, especially at the beginning stages of the business, right, they're able to pick up multiple different tasks and handle them. They're able to work in like a lot of ambiguity, which is what you'll find in typical early stage businesses. So they play a critical role at that stage. I would say that where the challenge comes is then when the business needs to scale and then they lack the depth of knowledge that is required in any particular field to actually dig deep and, do the work at that point. So if I was to advise anyone, I would say perhaps start as a generalist, but then in that process, start to understand, like be quite reflective and understand who you are and start to find the particular role that you think you like would suit you the most, and then start to build the depth of knowledge in that sort of, in that role and build a skill set within that role. Yeah. And so I'll hand over to Oyin.
Thanks, Ibifuro. I think that's very well said. I think there are some advantages to developing a generalist mindset, but to developing specific skills where necessary. So I think there are advantages to a generalist mindset because things change really quickly. You know, 2 years ago, when we were having conversations about which industries were most interesting, we were talking obviously about fintech, but also about things like logistics tech. You know, this year we're talking more about AI and health tech. And data. So things change quickly. Companies are no longer just looking to expand in a particular country, they're looking at becoming regional players. So those kind of things means that the mindset of a generalist, which allows them to adapt quickly, to use data and insights and information that comes to them, and then adapt their product and decision making accordingly, is going to be really relevant whatever you go into. We're constantly hiring for senior developers and CTOs for startups and scale-ups. And what we tend to find is that whilst they're looking for individuals that have deep tech knowledge, they also say to us, well, actually, a really good developer can probably learn a new language pretty quickly. And what makes them really good actually is being able to be a really good problem solver, being able to pick up things really quickly, having experience that has allowed them to do that. So I think that whether you're going to be a generalist or focus, you still need to have some of the mindset and abilities that comes with being a generalist. But to the points that we've raised before, when it comes to operating at scale, and when it comes to moving from a startup to a scale up, generalist talent isn't going to be enough. Having deep operational experience in a specific area is going to serve you better. Adetola.
So thanks a lot. So the way I think of it is simple. The way I think of it is that I don't think there's really such a thing as being a generalist, in a sense that I think it's more a mindset than a set of skills, right? I know we like to reduce them to skills, and mostly because the human mind likes to to conceptualize things in like a very basic concept. But I think like being a generalist is more a set of a mindset than a set of skills. I think what a generalist is really someone who has, one, a curiosity to learn, right? Two, a can-do attitude, and three, like a competence to follow through on your words. And I think those are like three things you really want to hire for when you're hiring at a generalist, right? But the interesting thing is that that's exactly also what you want to hire when you hire someone at the beginning of their career, right? And so the truth is, like, the way I think of it is like, I think everyone at the beginning of the career just wants to be like ridiculously curious, be able to keep your word, and be able to just like work hard, like, and that's it, right? And I think that no matter how much you want to specialize, everyone starts as a generalist, right? Like everyone starts as a generalist. Like everyone starts saying, I don't like even the most specialized doctors, and I say that because I almost started a very specialized career, right? I started in international law, but truth is like, to a great extent, you're still a generalist, right? Because even the most specialized areas have like a band of things that you can still get super, super specialized in. And like the way I think of it is that what you want to do at first is just like ridiculously curious. And the reason is that you might just be wrong. Like you might think that you've cracked the thing you want to go solve, and you want to spend your life being like this kind of medical doctor or this kind of like specific generalist. And midway through it, that industry just vanishes, right? AIs just do all the work. And now you're like a specialist in like a specific industry that now like codes can do, right? So like the way I think of it is like, it's about the mindset, right? Like, and that's why people can switch careers and redefine themselves a number of times. There are people that have defined themselves a number of times in their industry and in their careers. And the reason is it's just a set of like skills, right? Or skills of mindset, right? So what you want is to be curious. Like, and I think that we can't say that enough, right? I think that too many people want to reduce everything to like routes and say it's 1, 2, 3, and that's it. But like what you want really is people that are just ridiculously curious and ready to do the work to learn. Like, I think I tweeted something as I'm like, learn fastest. Like, I think what you want to be is the one that learns the fastest, period. Like learn faster than everybody else. Like, just say, I'm going to go try something else and go learn. And I say this, so today everyone looks to me to help when they're trying to raise, right, in the ecosystem, right? I think I've worked on almost every raise, or at least most of the big chunk of the raises, right? But truth of the matter is that, like, when at the earliest days of investment raising, like there were no documents. Like now everyone knows what the safe means, but like we didn't have all those contexts at that time, right? What happened is that you go to, they'll wisely put a document on, you go study the document, you listen to all the YouTube videos you can, you write, you like, and you just keep learning, right? Now everyone knows what to do, right? But the point is, like, at the beginning stages, there were none of these like specializations that we all talk about now, right? And like, the truth also is that in fast growing startups, people can afford to have you only do one specific thing. It's just too expensive. Like you can't have someone who all they do is reply one email every day. Like, it's like, dude, what happens all the other times when emails are not coming in, right? Like, it's just not, like, it just doesn't work. And even in growth startups, when we say that you want to specialize, what happens a number of times that when you see the people who grow really fast, what happens also is that they're able to do a lot of things, right? So one of my friends just got promoted to like a very senior role in Microsoft. And all his real work, right, is to go figure out big gaps in the organization and basically go solve it. And like, organizations are willing to pay a lot for those kind of skills, because the idea is that, listen, there's just so much you don't know. And so what I think is more important, right, is creating a system where you're incredibly curious, you're learning faster than everybody else, and you're just doing that over and over again. And then if you keep doing that over and over and you stumble on something you like more than others, then you can go specialize. But like, I don't think everyone should go in trying to specialize. I think you should just go in with curiosity and a readiness to learn. And then whatever you stumble on, you then get specialized at that.
Thank you. All right, Ojoma.
Sure. So 3 points I want to make. One is, when we think about generalists, we think of them as a jack of all trades, right? And that quote, we talk about being a jack of all trades, master of none. But that's not the complete quote. The complete quote is, jack of all trades, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but they are oftentimes better than a master of one, right? So when we look at a generalist as somebody being somebody who, you know, they do a little bit of everything, I feel like that's also a slightly erroneous view of what a generalist is. Because if you look into it deeply, most generalists, at least in my experience, they will have broad knowledge across a range of things because of the curiosity and all of the attributes that Tola and other people have talked about. But the more senior generalists get, as Tola was saying, the more they will find what they're good at, and the more they will specialize in what they're good at. And then there's a trajectory, there's a point within the trajectory of the career where there's great benefit in being a specialist. My final point on that is, in my experience, the 2 times in your career when being a generalist are most important are when you're starting out and when you're at the top of your career. Because again, when you're leading a company, you can't be a specialist in only one thing, right? I know I'm a creative economy specialist, but I have to do finance. I have to understand legal. I have to understand trends in technology. I just done a career pivot and moved from core creative economy into creative economy and tech. Like, so at the top, not that I'm at the top of my career, but the more senior you get, the more senior you get, the more the impetus, the requirement for you to be a generalist becomes even more, because at that point, you don't then have that luxury of saying, oh, I only do one thing because I'm a specialist in this thing. So that doesn't really answer your question particularly, but I think summarizing and building on everything everybody has said is, being a generalist is really useful. And certainly in my experience, you have to have those attributes, those mindsets of being a generalist. You have to be able to do more than one thing, even if you're a specialist, because at the end of the day, that's what moves you forward.
Okay. Well, I think, you know, we've had such a great session so far, and we're running out of time. We've also touched on some of the things I wanted to ask next. But to quickly summarize, the point from this was that, one, there is really no such thing as a generalist, right? So it's more of a mindset than a skill set, right? And that mindset shows through in inquisitiveness, curiosity, and open-mindedness, right? And then the second thing is, at some point, everybody, either at the beginning or at the top of their career, would end up doing more than one thing. So in some sense, you will be like a generalist, right? And I think the final key takeaway here for me is, everybody wants to hire someone that, you know, has a can-do attitude, and depending on the startup stage that an employee is coming into, you can't really, the startup can't afford to pay you to do just one thing. So you need to be prospecting internally to see how else you can support the team, which then makes you a generalist, even if it's within a vertical. So for instance, you're a developer, but you know that the company needs DevOps, and you can then extend yourself in that line. So thanks, guys. I would ask one last question to each person, and just, you know, in like a few seconds, you summarize that. So for Tola, the question is going to be about cross-border competition for talent, right? Which African countries beyond Nigeria stand out as cultivating a strong talent pool that Nigeria can learn from?
That's a hard question.
But we'll make it 30 seconds to get everybody's
question. I'm going to rush through it. I think that Kenya is doing an incredible job. The reason is that Kenya has become like a melting pot for talent. The reason is that because it's open and it has an easy setup, what's happening is that you're finding a world where a lot of people are coming from all parts of the world to like set up in Kenya. So like Kenya has a very interesting pool. You could almost get the kind of talent you get in New York in Kenya because like everyone can come there. I think that there's also South Africa, but I think South Africa is more a financing thing because they have a very sophisticated ecosystem. What you're beginning to see is that, and there's a lot more capital. You're going to see a lot more situations where people actually are just sophisticated. I think Egypt and a lot of not for tech talent in particular, a lot of North Africa also do. And the reason is that you can almost get fantastically excellent talent for cheap. Like also why you see that most of the coding competitions almost gets won by Egypt or Morocco or Tunisia, right? So I think it's like 3 places. But I think what the trends there is creating a melting pot where so many people can come and like meet at. And I think the second big trend for there also is ensuring that people can actually link capital directly to talent faster.
Makes a lot of sense. Create a melting pot and provide access to capital. Okay, so Ibifuro, the question here is, what key skill sets do you think can take our entrepreneurial pool to the next level that we need? Something that Ojoma hammered on today was that there's a lot of hustle spirit, hustle energy, but not enough entrepreneurial skill sets. So what key entrepreneurial skill sets do you think are needed to take our entrepreneurship to the next level?
I'll just toe the line of everything we sort of discussed in the session today. So I think just staying curious is really important as an entrepreneur because you need to continuously, evolve, and your business needs to continuously evolve with the times and stay on top of, I guess, what your customers' needs are. So that's like one really key piece. And then along those same lines is staying teachable, because as an entrepreneur, sometimes you feel like, like you get to a point where you've built such a successful business and you might think, I've reached the top of my game and I know what's going on in the ecosystem, but you kind of need to stay teachable because there will always be things that perhaps were not a problem that suddenly, maybe as a startup, you were able to communicate with all your employees easily, but then as a growth stage or scale-up company, you're now having to think through how to, manage human resources better and all of that. And so I'll say, those 2 things, just stay curious as an entrepreneur and stay teachable.
All right. Thank you very much for keeping it short. And then for Oyin, MoveMeBack does a lot of work with international and diaspora communities. Are you seeing any particular skill set trying to move back into the continent for whatever reason? Give back, ability to impact more, whatever reason. So what skill sets are you seeing trying to move back to work on the continent?
Yeah, it's not a particular skill set, to be honest. It's a particular type of person. So it's typically diasporans with maybe around 2 years of experience up to about 7 to 10 years of experience, so typically quite mobile. And the reason they're moving back is it's not really to give back. It's more that they see an opportunity to make impact, but also to do well financially. So I think that what a lot of them see is that there's no better place for them to really use their skills in a way that can genuinely help the community and a community they care about, whilst also building something impressive and having a lot of ownership and responsibility at the same time.
Fair enough. I don't really believe many things are altruistic. Of course, there's usually some gain down the line. But I think good point that mostly the more mobile diasporans are the ones more likely to move back to the continent to see what they can do. All right, final question for Ojoma. CC Hub is doing a lot of work in the creative economy. Are there some talents or skills that are emerging that you think we need to place more focus on, right? So I know you mentioned some in like the opening question, but I want us to just seal it. So give like 2 skill sets and maybe 2 ways we can, deepen it or help level up in that sense.
So I'll say, Yeah, I'll say one cross-cutting skill and then maybe one deeper skill. So the first one, I'd say innovation skills across the board. And innovation skills are a bucket of skills, aren't they? I'm talking of things like imagination, problem solving, critical thinking, continuous improvement, curiosity, all of these things that we've been talking about. So whether you're in a management role or you're in an artistic role or you're in a technical role, whatever kind of role you are, I think just those innovation skills across the board are something that are critical because things are so fluid. Like the value chains are changing, the ecosystem is changing. So if you don't have those skills, it's very difficult to lead a company or be in a company that moves with the times and is able to capture opportunities as they come up. And for that, I feel like in terms of how to solve it, it's way across the board, from the education system and us changing it at scale from a rote learning system to one that's more learner focused, more participatory, to more opportunities for internships and apprenticeships and learning on the job, and schemes that are supporting employers to offer the learning on the job opportunities, because there's a cost. We talk about apprenticeships all the time, but who's going to pay for it? Not the companies that are bootstrapping are struggling, for sure. So I feel like when we're thinking of training, for example, as governments, it shouldn't just be, we're going to do a workshop for 5 days. Like, how are we supporting companies to do apprenticeships and let people learn on the job and develop some of those innovation skills that they can probably only learn in the workplace? I know we're out of time, so I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. This has been an amazing session. We'll connect afterwards, even outside this event, and looking forward to seeing us do more to increase the talent pool in Nigeria. Have a nice day.